right now, in this pandemic, in this time of the pandemic, all of us are encouraged to be flexible, to be adaptable, that we can navigate ourselves, we can be able to bend towards different situations wherein we can we can adjust. So in Filipino, there's a saying na kapag maikli ang kumot, matutong mamaluktot. Kung wala kang pambili ng bagong kumot na mas mahaba, mamaluktot ka muna. So, yeah, sometimes we have to be like the bamboo. We have to be flexible, we have to be adaptable. But then, of course, the characteristic of the mango tree, I don't know if you know the story of the bamboo grass and the mango tree by Malyari. It tells us that the mango tree and the bamboo grass wanted to settle once and for all who is the sturdiest, who's the strongest of the two. So they asked the wind's help to test both out. And when the wind gushed at the mango tree, of course, it is sturdy, it is robust. But then as the wind became stronger, so the mango tree was uprooted, while the bamboo grass swayed to the wind's direction. So, do we have to let go of our mango trees of the moment? Some, yes, we have to let go of it. Like maybe our mango tree is socialization. We go out, we mingle with friends physically, but then right now, due to the pandemic, we cannot. So, those are our mango trees, for example. So right now, this is what we are doing right now, this webinar series. This is like our bamboo grass. We become flexible. Actually, we can reach more people in this platform. But then, of course, we lack the socialization aspect of it when we do it here in this platform. But we have to do what we have right now. So we mix the two together. We become the bamboo and we become still the mango tree, so that we have a balance. It's a balancing act, as always. So I'd like to introduce a new term because we normally hear the terms the new normal, the new now. I'd like to term this part of our life right now, especially for the Generation Z or the Generation Alpha, because the millennials, we are the bridge from the Gen X to the Gen Z to the Gen Alpha, because the Gen X are our parents, our aunts, our uncles, even our teachers. So the Gen Z would be our children, would be our students, and the Gen Alpha, yeah, this is the youngest generation right now, starting off with 2015. So let's just give more examples of the mango tree. Yeah, before we only had print media. Now we have social media. So those magazines, if you would notice, they all migrated to digital platforms because they have to be able to go with the flow of the time. It is not anymore feasible. It is not anymore practical to print out those materials because most of us are already consuming products online in print media, for example. And right now, since we cannot do physical classes, similarly, analogically, we shift to online classes. So we become flexible. So learning doesn't stop, learning doesn't cease, but we have to have an avenue for it. And one of the avenues, I'm not saying that this is the only avenue, but one of the avenues is through online classes. But amongst all of this discussion, one is constant, one is fixed, and that is discipline. So We cannot not have discipline in such a way that when we lose discipline, when we lose the rule of law, as many would like to mention nowadays over social media, over different platforms, when we lose that, when we lose the real essence of the rule of law, when we lose the real essence of discipline, chaos happens. And we cannot afford chaos, especially at this time. We have to make sure that how we live our lives is still that of a civilized society. That's why they term it civil law. Those laws that affect your relationship with other people. So that's where the term is derived from. That's why we call it civil law. Okay? I'd like to start off with the parents because when I discuss student discipline as a prefect of discipline, of course there are other parties involved to this one, not just the students, but we start off with the parents. So I don't know if you experienced this kind of discipline at home for the Gen Z and the Gen Alpha. For us millennials, we experience this kind of discipline uh, more so with the Gen X and the younger generation, or the older generations rather. So the corporal way of punishing. But then we are reminded here, as you can see on the screen, we are reminded by the Supreme Court itself that says that discipline in the part of the parent should be tantamount to the misbehavior that occurred in the child. It cannot be abusive. It cannot be condoning. It should be balanced. You find the Goldilocks zone of disciplining the children. And of course, I believe Ma'am Nina would agree with me. You have to have an explanation. You have to have a communication with the children, with the students, as to why you are correcting the behavior, why such behaviors should not persist in the classroom, at home, and even in society. So I'd like to enumerate some provisions in our legal systems, in our laws. It says here in Article 45 of Presidential Decree 603, or the Child and Youth Welfare Code, in the child as may be necessary for the formation of the child's good character and may therefore require from the child obedience to just and reasonable rules, suggestions, and admonitions. So there's this reciprocity, if that is the correct term. We reciprocate. Children, obey your parents, but the parents need to establish rather just and reasonable rules, suggestions, and admonitions. So kailangan po reasonable po yung gusto natin mangyari sa mga anak po natin, sa mga mag-aaral po natin. And at the same time, children or students need to comply with such admonitions or rules, as what we would say. Further, in the family code, it says here to provide them with moral and spiritual guidance, inculcate in them honesty, integrity, most of all, self-discipline. Okay, because I believe this is the ultimate goal of parents, of teachers in your lives as students and as children. Self-discipline. That you already know what to do at the end of the day when you are on your own, even without the guidance of your parents or of your teachers. That you can call the shots every time that you are faced with a dilemmic situation. Ano bang gagawin ko? Should I do this? Should I do that? Should I not do this or should I not do that? And further, parents have the right and the duty to stimulate their interest in civic affairs. So most of the time, we avoid discussions at home or even the classroom when we encounter political or even religious talks. Contrary, we shouldn't avoid such discussions because all the more we are having a dissonance, we are having a wrong perception of politics and religion since it's becoming taboo or it's a discussion wherein we avoid because it becomes nasty at the end of the day. But if we learn how to be able to interact and respectfully argue based on issues, based on facts, data driven arguments, then we can liberally discuss such topics. And as parents, it is a right and at the same time a duty. It is enumerated in the Family Code of the Philippines. And further, contextualizing it in the education part, parents have the duty to furnish their children with good and wholesome educational materials, supervise their activities, recreation, and association with others, protect them from bad company, and prevent them from acquiring habits detrimental to their health, studies, and morals. So, kung pinapakialaman po kayo ng mga magulang nyo, I'm talking to the students here and the children, it's because it is one of their duties. But of course, as parents, as teachers, we balance it out. We don't want to be helicopter teachers or helicopter parents na from time to time, oh, anong ginagawa mo? Oh, ano yan, ano yan, ano yan, ano yan. So we don't want that. But at the same time, we want you to be free from such bad influences. Okay? So that is why, at the end of the day, parents have a very crucial role in the development of the children, in the development of the students' moral and psychological aspect. As when they go to school, there are tendencies wherein students manifest such behaviors that were not addressed properly at home. So this is enumerated in the Family Code of the Philippines as well. And of course, parents are, of course, to support their children. Okay, so I lifted this from the DepEd website, from the DepEd page or in their Facebook page. Okay, so ayan, I think this is the ito yung usong-usong laro ngayon. I believe this Mobile Legends or Clash of Clans. I do not know. I do not play such games, so pardon me for my unfamiliarity. So, but of course, yun nga eh, this comic strip shows to us that as parents, we have to somehow immerse ourselves with the world of our children, the world of our students, because whether we like it or not, how they appreciate the world, how they appreciate the society is different from how we appreciated it when we were growing up. So we cannot have this great divide always that, yung panahon namin, ganito. Yung panahon nyo, ganito na kayo. We cannot have that, if I may, toxic comparison with the experience. Kasi iba po talaga. They grew up or they are growing up with these gadgets, with these technological advancements, wherein us, we were experiencing it at the early onset of such devices. But for them, they already have it. Magugulat nga po kayo eh, my children, when they sometimes tinker with the gadgets, intuitively they can control, they can manipulate the technological gadgets that we have right now. So the Generation Z or the Generation Alpha, they are described as digital mavens. Magagaling po talaga sila when it comes to manipulating technological devices. For millennials, we are digital natives because we are growing up at the same time these technology is being developed. And for those Gen X and older, of course, they are the digital migrants. So they have to really adjust to the developments in technology. But at the end of the day, support is needed by the children from the parents. Allow me to play this short clip by Father Orbos, SPV. These are his 3 C's of parenting. All right. So were you able to hear the clip po? Can anyone chat me in the box po? Can anyone confirm that you heard the short clip po? For a while. Me, let me replay.
By the way, parents, you grow up with your child. Nung bata sila, you're the controller. Go ahead, that's good. They grow up, you also grow up. You become a coach. Coach ka na lang. Okay? They grow up, you grow up also, you become a consultant. If you stay with me as a controller, 30 years old, 40 years old, then things go bad.
So there you go. So Father Orbos discussed here in this short clip. Actually, this is just an excerpt of his clip in YouTube. Actually, the name of the video is ICE, the game of ICE, impositions, control, and expectations. So he discussed here the roles of the parents as children or as students grow up. So personally, in my case, my children are just 2 years old, a year old. So as parents, we are in the controlling phase of parenting. Of course, their motor, their gross and fine motor skills are still being fine-tuned. Their cognitive aspects are still being shaped very well. So I believe for those who are in the early childhood, majorships would understand that this is a very crucial time, and what you are feeding to the children mentally, psychologically, it is very important. That's why Father Orbos mentions here, you are the controller at this time, at this stage of their development. And as they grow up, maybe during elementary, during high school, you become a coach. You set the gameplay, you tell them, you advise them on what to do, but the control is lessened because if you see a coach in a basketball game, for example, the coach called the shots, but who makes the gameplay, who implements the gameplay, it's the player. So in the family's context, it's the children who will make the gameplay, who will implement the gameplay that the coach or the parent will instruct the children. So control is being somehow lessened here at this time. And finally, he mentioned here, when they grow up all the way to adulthood, when they have their own career, when they have their own families already, or maybe not a family track, maybe they have a different goal in life, you just become a consultant. So I don't know if you would agree with me, consultants in firms, in organizations, Pardon me, I will just drink po. Consultants are paid very highly in companies. Mahal po ang bayad. In parents, baliktad po. Ang parents po ang nagbabayad ng malaking halaga for children, for them to grow up po and to be reared properly. So kaya po we are awarded with the distinction of being a consultant. So ano na po ba ang ginagawa ng parents at this time, at this stage of their children's life, or as teachers in the student's life? Pag graduate na sila, alumni na sila, we become advisors. We allow them to experience failures, hardships, successes in life. When they approach us for advice, for sound advice, for sound pieces of wisdom, nuggets of wisdom, then that's the time that we can impart again as parents, as teachers, on how to navigate or how to go about this situation. Pero just like what Father Orbo said, if you did not grow up as a parent while your children are growing up, that would become a very toxic relationship na 40 anyos na yung anak mo, nakatira pa rin sa'yo, 40 anyos na siya, tinatanong pa rin kayo bilang magulang kung pwede siyang lumabas ng bahay, pwede siyang maki-party sa kaibigan niya. I believe that is not helping, or as sad as it is, you failed your child. You failed as a parent. Kung ganun pa rin po, that you are still a controller at this stage in their lives. So those are the 3 C's of parenting. And I hope this will help us as teachers, as parents, to guide our children and our students. Most of the participants here are already in college. So we are already shifting, or most likely we are already towards the end of the coaching phase, and we are already in the consultancy phase of our parenthood, of our teacherhood in them. That is why we hope that it is also the manner in which we conduct ourselves in our homes and in our schools. So allow me to expand on the 3 C's of Father Orbos. This is my 4 C's. So in my experience as prefect, there are a lot of situations, familial situations, wherein I experienced how the misbehavior is stemming, or it's being rooted from the family situation at home. Sometimes the parents do not have time for their children, and sometimes it is understandable. Maybe you are already filled with your work, you're already preoccupied with your work. But of course, as what I mentioned a while ago, in the provisions in law, in our legal system, it is our duty. So, yun nga, we play different roles as parents. Personally po, we juggle, my wife and I. We are teachers, we are parents, and we are students also. I am still studying po in graduate school. It's difficult. It's very difficult, especially when your children are both very young, all your attention, and they need most of your attention because especially at that age. So communication po is very important. That you talk to your children, we talk to our students, and we get their opinion, we get their say in different matters, maybe in family decisions, in family matters, even in school concerns, in school house rules, for example. We ask their opinion. It is not anymore very healthy that we just decide on our own. We need to communicate with them. We negotiate with them, so that at the end of the day, we reach a mutual understanding that as parents, this is what I expect from you, and I hope this is what you will do. And you ask your children, what are your expectations from me? And what are your expectations in class, for example, in the classroom? So that at the end of the day, malinaw po ang gusto niyong mangyari po para sa bahay, para sa paaralan po. Because if you do not do that, if you don't establish that at day one, for example, in schools, ay mahirap pong habulin yan because habit forming. Mahirap na pong baguhin. So we establish it at day one for the teachers. And as parents, of course, as they grow older, we need to establish that. That's why my second C is contract. So whatever they will do, whatever they will say, so it is bound by rules. And they have to understand as students, as children, that whatever action they take, it will always have a consequence, whether it is a good one or a bad one. And maybe this would help teachers also. Baka yung mga teachers na nanggagalaiti po talaga sa mga estudyante na ingay-ingay naman talaga nito. Parang gusto mo nang mag-corporal punishment po para sa kanila. Pero if you would view it differently, relationship is somewhat contractual in nature, that if you do this, this will happen. If you do that, this will happen also. So you have your peace of mind as a teacher, and the students will be familiarized with your rules, with the contract that they've entered into in school and at home. So, and the third one, consistency. So you have to do this very consistently. Yeah, I hear always in fitness videos, in fitness related channels over YouTube, that if you want to lose fat, you want to be thin, you want to be healthy, one of the key aspects is consistency. You have to do it every single day. It's already a part of your system, it's already a part of your life. Is already something that is non-negotiable already. So, at home, when we discipline our children, you have to be consistent. Yung hindi pwede, hindi pwede. Yung pwede, pwede. Pero of course, there are times that we can bend it a little bit. Yun nga po, that's where the balancing act happens in parents. Na baka naman masyado nating nahihigpitan yung mga bata. Of course, recreation. And there's time for creation. When I say creation po, they become productive in their day-to-day lives po. And recreation, that's a time that they can be, they can enjoy the activities that they are doing, and they have to manage it time-wise po. And lastly, this is what we all need right now, and hopefully all of us function in this manner. We function with compassion. We understand what they are going through. We understand as parents, as teachers, that they will make mistakes. They will sometimes violate school rules. And as teachers, as parents, since we have this moral ascendancy over them, mas nakakaalam po dapat tayo sa mga estudyante, sa mga anak po. That is why compassion should start from us as adults po. So that the children or the students would emulate this and imbibe it in them, that, oh nga, so si teacher, si mommy, si daddy, this is how they approach this manner. So it's very important that we become good role models for our students, for our children, so that tayo po yung gagayahin nila. Kasi gagayahin po talaga nila tayo in how we teach, how we conduct ourselves in a manner. Gagayahin po talaga tayo ng mga bata po. Sana ang nagagaya po nila yung mga magagandang ugali po na nanggagaling po sa kanilang mga magulang, sa kanilang mga guro. Let's go to rights and duties of teachers. So, syempre, hindi po mawawala si teacher. So, I lifted this from the Constitution itself. So they, educational institution, or the teachers themselves, shall strengthen ethical and spiritual values, develop moral character, and personal discipline. So, hindi po naiiba yung batas po sa teachers o sa eskwelahan po o sa paaralan. Dahil I have this concept that schools mirror the home, and the home should mirror the school. They have a mirror effect that kung ano po yung mga values na meron sa bahay, they translate it to school and it blossoms further. And hopefully at home, they would be able to apply or implement what they have learned further in school. So, partnership po talaga. That's why halos pareho lang po yung sinasabi ng batas patungkol sa paaralan at patungkol po sa mga magulang. From the family code, yes, even teachers are mentioned in the family code po. So, mga teachers po, yung mga guro po natin, so somewhat kapamilya po. Very endearing term, kapamilya. The school, its administrators and teachers shall have special parental authority and responsibility over the minor child while under their supervision, instruction, or custody. Authority and responsibility shall apply to all authorized activities, whether inside or outside the premises of the school, entity, or institution. Okay, so habang yung mga estudyante po, yung mga anak po natin nasa paaralan po, authority is vested upon the teachers to discipline them, to guide them, to protect them from any untoward incidents po. And schools affect the behavior of the students even outside, especially those that are sanctioned activities, field trips, JS prom, and immersions, for example, and other activities of the school. Eh ngayon po, wala po tayong ganun lahat ngayon. So what we should monitor right now as teachers is, of course, their behavior online, the online classrooms po. So right now, it is more than ever, the definition is expanded, that it reaches the online classroom already. But of course, the authority or the responsibility to discipline the children right now, since nasa bahay po sila, unfortunately po, the share of responsibility to discipline hindi po balansyado ngayon kasi children will stay at home. So parents po or their guardians or whoever is involved in child care or student care will be the ones who will manage the discipline aspect at home, the physical discipline. But of course, the cyber discipline, whenever they are in classes, will be managed by the teachers po. Pero yun nga po, minimal po yung magiging role ni teacher po kasi it's during only their interaction online. Or if they intercept inappropriate behavior over the internet or social media for that matter. So just expanding on the previous slide, okay? So this is a case from 1982, luma na po, Angeles versus Season, okay? Nangyari po kasi dito, yung dalawang estudyante, pang inabangan si teacher po nila, nangyari po ito sa college. So, binugbog po si teacher. And their defense was, hindi naman nangyari sa loob ng school eh. It happened outside. But the SC or the Supreme Court ruled, hindi. The school has authority to discipline you or to impose disciplinary sanctions on you because it is mostly on letter B, in cases where the misconduct of the student involves his status as a student or affects the good name and reputation of the school. Because the general rule po, the general principle is, whenever children are outside already, they are not within the confines of the school, it is best left to the parents, to the community, to the barangay, to the police to manage the peace and order po. But there are instances wherein the school can exercise its power. And In this case, in this jurisprudence po, there are two instances that was enumerated that schools can invoke their disciplinary authority over their students or their learners. So just a reminder for teachers out there or would-be teachers out there, we have this code of ethics for professional teachers. So this is derived from, or this is in application of paragraph E, article 2 of RA number 7836 or the Philippine Professionalization Act of 1994. Okay, allow me to highlight two sections here under article 11. So it says here, a teacher shall place premium upon self-discipline as the primary principles of personal behavior in all relationships with others and in all situations. A teacher, section 3, shall always maintain a dignified personality which could serve as a model. Ito po yung sinasabi ko po kanina, model worthy of emulation by learners, peers, and all others. So, yun nga po, as teachers, our conduct outside, the way we behave, the way we carry ourselves is very crucial because we should be, as what this code says, a model worthy of emulation. Not just by the learners, but even our friends and even the community po. So does this affect our behavior online? Of course, especially right now po, in this situation that we are in right now. It affects even online. And I believe we have already seen episodes of, unfortunately, teachers who are involved in such misdemeanors. And I will show that later on. So let's go to student discipline now. Allow me to go to the students. Oh, but before that, kumustahin ko po kayo? How are you? Are you still there? Are you still catching up? Archie, okay lang po ba yung mga participants natin? Yeah, dead silent po. Baka they are immersed in my discussion. Anyway. Sorry for that. Allow me to go to my current slide. So there. So rights and duties of a student. So the obligation of the school to educate a student would imply a corresponding obligation on the part of the student to study and obey the rules and regulations of the school. Okay? So ito po, this is derived from a case, University of San Agustin versus Court of Appeals. So kung tatanungin po natin, is there a duty to study well on the part of the students? Ito na po, sinasabi na po ng Korte Suprema. It is an obligation on the part of the student to study and obey the rules and regulations of the school. If the student fails to meet the academic and discipline standard of the schools, the student automatically forfeits his contractual right to finish the said course. Okay? But of course, it is not that it's not that stringent when we say you violated already or you failed this subject or that. Of course, there are processes in school that would allow you to be able to at least maybe go on probation muna. And at the end of the day, if the behavior or your academic standing will not improve, despite the help of the school, your academicians, your teachers, then yeah, it might lead to this very harsh output in school. So since most students or most children are on lockdown, they are more immersed in social media. So here are some tests, if I may call them tests, on free speech and expression. Because right now, of course, we see a lot of students or even social media users that are posting on Facebook and other social media applications here and there. So these are the three. These are American jurisprudence taken from their jurisprudence. So let's start off with this one, the Tinker test. What happened here in this case is that students wore black armbands po. Siyempre, nung time na yan, that's how they protest. This happened in 1969 pa po eh. So they wore black armbands in protest of the Vietnam War. And the academic administrators found it in violation of their rules. But the Supreme Court, it reached the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said neither students nor teachers shed their constitutional rights to freedom of speech or expression at the schoolhouse gate. So hindi po nawawala yung rights natin, especially mostly they invoke their First Amendment rights. So kung i-compare po natin sa constitution natin, they are referring to the Bill of Rights. So freedom of speech and of expression po. So it says here they do not shed their constitutional rights. So especially the topic that they are deliberating on is political in nature. So the students should not be hampered in expressing their agreement or dissent, their pag-sang-ayon or pag-di-sang-ayon po sa mga political na usapin po, lalo na po ngayon. But of course, there's a dissenting opinion. Someone went against the majority. It says here, students attend school to learn, not teach. Oh, medyo conservative po yung dissenting opinion po dito. School officials acting on a legitimate interest in school order should have broad authority to maintain a productive learning environment. So I enumerated the dissenting opinion because it's very important that we just do not hear the majority, but we value the dissent. Because as what one of my professors would say, the dissent of today might be the majority of tomorrow. So let's hear out those who are dissenting. Maybe we would hear wisdom from them. So contextualizing this in our home, pakinggan po natin yung mga anak po natin or in school, pakinggan po natin yung sinasabi ng mga mag-aaral po natin. Who knows? Maybe they are the ones who will be able to identify that the emperor is in fact not wearing any clothes at all. If you remember or if you know that story, the emperor's new clothes. Yung bata pa po ang nagsabi na wala namang suot talaga yung emperor. But the adults were saying, ang ganda-ganda, the tailoring is good, the weaving is impeccable. But the child said, no, he's naked. So we have to hear the minor opinions or the dissenting opinions. But this happened in 1986 po. It's the Fraser test po. So here, they also invoked what happened in Tinker. In the case of Tinker, that they have their right to express themselves liberally. But of course, it says here, schools have the responsibility of instructing students in what constitutes socially appropriate behavior and speech. So they have the right to punish inappropriate speech. It also interfered with the operation of the school by requiring the school to explain the situation to younger students. Nangyari po kasi dito, this was a campaign, sortie. The student, Fraser, was campaigning a classmate of his, but the way he delivered his campaign speech was that he was having sexual innuendos in his speech. So the school imposed sanctions on him, but then the defense of Fraser was, no, my First Amendment should be valued. And the court here also mentioned that since what we are talking about is not political in nature, the liberal aspect of it is not that relevant compared to the Tinker test po. So here we are talking about the manner in which he spoke, which is in violation of school rules and procedures po. And lastly, the Hazelwood test po. So this happened in 1988. This also invoked what happened in Tinker. But here it involves the school organ, the school paper po, that they published an article saying, talking about divorce and pregnancy, teen pregnancy, if I'm not mistaken. So the school struck out those articles, and I believe the students also were disciplined, were given sanctions on this one. It says here the First Amendment rights of student journalists are not violated when school officials prevent the publication of certain articles in the school paper. So right now po, since school newspapers or even general circulations or even tabloids, they're not that prominent anymore. We get our news online, and maybe some school organs also are already shifting to online platforms. So yes, you can express, you can give your speech there, but of course within the confines of what the school wants from you, or the values that the school would want you to invoke in writing, in publishing such articles. Because firstly, you represent the school when you write that. And secondly, if it was printed, it was a print media, school po ang technically gumagastos dun sa printing ng newspaper. So they have a say what to publish and what not to publish po. As long as it's not curtailing your right to free speech, and as long as you are not violating the rules of the school that are, or if you are not against the core values of the school, what is right and what is violative, then there would be no problem. But then sometimes you really have to balance it out. So let's go to social media, okay? Because I focus my discussion here because right now, since we are under quarantine, most of us, then it's the social media world that we are immersed in right now. So these abbreviations, hindi ko po kabisado to lahat. And there are some here that are not appropriate. So I won't mention anything anymore. But for the parents, for the teachers, baka kailangan po natin tong kodigo kasi baka minsan, syempre the children and the students, sometimes they would communicate in this manner. I don't know if the students here would agree, the college students here would agree that some of these abbreviations are being used in chat or even in posts. So yeah, sometimes it will be a cause of a concern because of course parents and teachers would want their children or their students to be able to communicate properly. And of course they have to contextualize how they speak depending on who their audience is. Is it their barkada, or is it someone who should be rendered courtesy and respect to? So I think that is one aspect that we have to look into so that we can, as parents, as teachers, guide them as to what type of language that they should be using in different contexts, in different situations po. Ayan. I think this is popular in social media, in students po. Memes. Ayan. Naranasan mo na bang mag-guidance? So, yun. Po, the guidance counselor po, technically, shouldn't be the one to handle discipline cases po. I believe Ma'am Nina would agree with me that the role of the guidance counselor in schools is to process the emotions and the thoughts of the students, the learners. And the guidance counselors should not be aggressive in nature. They would just guide, kaya nga po guidance, they would guide the students into a a resolution as to what they are feeling right now or what they are experiencing right now emotionally or psychologically. And iba po yung guidance counselor sa role ng, for example, my role in school as the prefect of discipline. The prefect is the one who handles disciplinary cases and the one who appropriates sanctions if needed be or different forms of intervention po. So the guidance is the one who manages or supervises or guides the students' emotions and thoughts. So ito po, ayan, 1 week suspension, kala nyo lang 1 week yung suspension, yung pala, last day na, graduation rites were done virtually, hindi na kayo pinapalabas, bawal lumabas, like sinabi nga po ni Kim, bawal lumabas na. So, we don't know when we can be able to really go outside and be able to experience what we have prior to this pandemic. So, ayan pa po, yan. In my opinion, as prefect, there's no problem. There's no cause of concern when you share or post memes, so long as it is not violative of the rules of the school. You are not stepping onto or not infringing the rights of other people. When I say that, it is already violative of their rights, that they have the right for privacy, they have the right to be secured mentally, emotionally. That's why I always tell, don't laugh at other people's expense. Laugh with them. Have good, clean fun. Especially in social media, especially in news. Ayan pa po. Ayan. So, may mga matataba po talaga yung utak. So, ito po. Online classes are like an episode of Dora. Tatahimik muna. Like po ngayon, wala po ako masyadong interaction. So, move on na lang po after 10 seconds. Siya na rin po ang sasagot ng tamang sagot. So, if you're into anime, no problem. So, as parents, as teachers, let's not hamper the learners or the students' creativity. In a sense that kung saan po sila natututo ng masaya po, then we support it. If they learn better using anime terms or they learn better with using memes, then so be it. So long as at the end of the day, they get the learning that they need from school, from the home. Parang like solving mathematical equations. There are different solutions. So long as you arrive in the same answer, then we are all good. So, gone are the days na, hindi, ito lang yung solution dapat. No, there are varied solutions. There are different avenues. There are different shortcuts. There are different service roads to be able to take so that we end in one goal. And in our goal right now is discipline. So, ayan po. Nakatutuwaan ko rin naman po yung memes. It's a good, clean fun naman po. Ito po, itong meme na to, sabi nila, wala munang suntukan. Ano muna ha? Ano sabi dito? Hadouken muna or Kamehame wave daw muna. So, kasi nga, they're wearing face shield and face mask po. Ano naman po, matalinong bata, sinabi ng nanay na ayusin mo yung pagluto ng paksiw. Ayan po, nagplating na po yung bata ng paksiw habang niluluto. So, baka abutin niyo po inabot ng bata dun sa earlier slide na hinahabol ng yantok or kung ano man po yun. So, ito po yung sinasabi ko po na good, clean fun po over social media na we don't laugh at the expense of others, but it's situational humor po. It's observational humor. We don't need to violate or we don't need to intrigue the personality of different people. So, next would be grievances. Mga reklamo po natin sa school, mga reklamo po natin in different institutions. What would be a better way of doing grievances po? Schools, organizations have their internal grievance mechanisms po. So, dun po natin ilagay yon. So, we talk to them in private po because most are private institutions and they value their privacy po. excuse me. Like I was saying, they value their privacy, and at the same time po, it would not help that you broadcast your complaint to the world. Unless, of course, it is of general interest. For example, nawalan kayo ng kuryente, nawalan ng tubig, heavy traffic, nawalan kayo ng internet. So these are basic utilities that some people would be interested to know. And hindi po natin yuyurakan yung institution mismo na ano ba yan? Wala na naman kaming kuryente, walang tubig. It would not help, but it would help other people to know na walang service ngayon kasi this and that. So, but for other concerns po, it would be better if we use the internal systems that the schools in context po have in place po. Kung may reklamo po tayo, kausapin po natin yung mismong tao or yung mismong organization kung saan tayo merong reklamo po. So, ito po example, ayan. I had to censor out some words po kasi it's not appropriate to share. So, ayan, sinasabi ko po internet, ayan. So, you know, this one I would somewhat, if he or she changed the way he or she raised his grievance, since, like I said, internet right now is not anymore an advantage. It's a commodity already. It's a need for us, especially now in this time of the pandemic that we are going online. It is a necessity already for us to have internet connection, but it could have been worded better. So another concern on this part of the students. So since we are going online, kahit naman po hindi online, this has been happening po. If you submit research paper, sana wala po dito sa participants natin ang gumagawa nito. Paalala lang po, when we submit scholarly work, that natitempt po tayo mag-Control-C, Control-V, ayan, nakikita na, galing kay wiki, galing sa ganitong site. Since technology is better right now, of course, teachers, parents can, or mostly teachers can detect if you are copying something online. There are already applications or tools that are available for them to check if this is really an original work of yours, or if you lifted something from the internet, you cited it properly. And the paraphrasing skills are there. You paraphrase the terms of the researcher or the author when you lift materials. Okay? So, ayan. Ito yung usong-uso po sa social media. Sana wala pong gumagawa nito sa atin. Hashtag CTPO, hashtag copy-paste. Says here, I got this from a page in Facebook, Batas for Everyone. Reasons kung bakit walang kwenta yung CTTO mo, kaka-CTTO mo. So, ayan, number one, you don't give one who originally posted it. Okay? So, ayan. And number two, you take it out of context. So, for example, you just took the picture and you reposted it and you gave a different context by putting a different caption to it. Ay, nawawala po yung real essence ng post ng original author. And based on number one, you don't give credit where credit is due. And third, mahirap alamin kung lehitimo ang pinanggagalingan ng impormasyon. Sabi pa nga po dito dahil mostly daw tamad mag-search kung saan nanggaling itong source na ito. Kaya, ayan, share na lang. So, it would be better if you're not sure, don't share it anymore. Huwag na po natin share. Po, personally, tinitingnan ko, yan, pag ganito ang mga hashtag na to, ay, nako. So, hindi na po, I do not entertain such posts anymore. Some are very reliable because they really put references. Minsan nga, naka-APA style pa nga po yung references nila. If masipag po kayo, you can do that also. But the link would be enough for you to be able to share that one, and you preserve the context of the post online. And if you are already citing it, actually there are already formats for social media citation. But of course, in social media, it is not considered an academic form of writing. That's why we are more relaxed when it comes to citation. Links would be enough. Unless it is already a research paper or a published work, then that's the time we have to be very strict with the citations, with the references that we use, because it is of academic or scholarly work. But in social media, it's more of for entertainment. But you know, Facebook already shifted from being the land of memes to become the land of political and religious arena, gladiatorial arena na, ito, clash of ideas na tama, mali, tama sila, mali kami, and so on and so forth. But of course, we have to be responsible in using references. Ito po yung sinasabi ko kanina, based on code of ethics in social media. Teachers, let's be careful of what we post online po. I'd like to zero in on the first one, the one that was charged with sedition. I won't comment anymore on the criminal side of it because it is not our concern. And of course, looking at it on face value, it is questionable. The manner in which it was done is questionable, but we leave it to the proper authorities to determine that one. And actually, it was already determined by a court judge. But then, we have to remember that as teachers, the administrative side of this one is lighter in terms of the requirement for evidence whenever they conduct administrative hearings, administrative cases in schools. Whenever we hear administrative cases, the proof is lower compared to a criminal case, because a criminal case would require proof beyond reasonable doubt. Yung po yung sinasabi po lagi na walang kaduda-duda gumawa nito. For example, krimen ang mangiliti, walang kaduda-duda, ikaw ang kumiliti dito sa tao na to. Kaya hahatulan ka ng korte nito ng habang buhay na pagkikiliti din. So, for example, ganun po. In administrative cases, it's the quantum of proof or evidence is lower, wherein we only need substantial proof that the human mind can understand what he did or what she did is against the rules of the school, against the policies of the school. That is why there are sanctions that needed to be put in place. So we have to remember that one. So meron pong instances na you are absolved criminally but you are still liable administratively. So ano po bang nangyayari if you're the maximum penalty for administrative cases, nawawalan po ng trabaho, or worse, nawawalan din po ng lisensya if you're teachers, because it is an administrative case if it is elevated to PRC, for example. So pwede po mangyari yun. So mag-iingat po tayo as teachers. And like I said, we have to be role models to our students, to our children, to our community, na hindi dapat ganito yung mga pinopost po natin online. Kaya nga po, if this is the stringent requirements of becoming a teacher, so mag-isip-isip po kayo. Gusto niyo po ba talagang maging guro? Dahil ito po yung requirement ng pagiging isang guro. This is the required level of discipline for teachers. Kung hindi mo kaya, I suggest you get out of the teaching profession po. As honest as that po. If you cannot take the heat, get out of the kitchen nga po. Yun nga po yung sinasabi nila. Po, very sad na this is a statement coming from a teacher that this teacher is advocating this kind of behavior. So let us not resort to these kinds of postings online po. Ito pa po, isa pa po on the part of the students. Yan, trash talkan. Of course, this is a behavior online that should not be promoted by schools, by administrators. And yun nga po, even our own school. Ayan. That's why I confronted this one. Ginamit pa yung logo ng school mismo po. So, we can invoke properly our disciplinary authority over this one. Kasi ginamit pa nga po yung logo ng school at pinangalan pa po sa school na ito ay trash talkan group. We will not condone such behavior, such online misdemeanor. And I hope if there are trash talkan pages out there or darambulan pages out there, they would think twice. They would perpetuate their behaviors, such behaviors online. Kasi hindi po nakakatulong. Hopefully, the ones that we do online are the ones that would help the community become better citizens of the country. Another, fake news. And po, there are good sites to detect fake news. There are postings out there that would remind us to be vigilant when it comes to information. This is an example, Earthshaker. I believe Earthshaker is a group that is comprised of students also, and I applaud them that they are that responsible online. They share valuable information po online, not just with the weather, but of course with how to fact check statements. So we be careful before we share anything. So just some of these are further reminders. These are the types of fake news and how do we detect from Harvard, and they really enumerated how to detect and how to be able to ward off fake news. Okay, and you have, for example, here satire. You have to distinguish na it's not a serious site. It's not a serious posting, but it is a satire form of posting. It's not true, okay? But it is a stretch, it is an exaggeration of a real event. Privacy online. Is there such a thing as privacy online? Meron po ba? Let's look at the chat. Do you think there's privacy, what we call, is there absolute privacy online? Wala po, wala. Yes, correct po. No such thing as absolute privacy online, especially when you uploaded it already. If your settings are public, even with friends, even customized. This is a case, Vivares versus St. Teresa's College in Cebu, if I'm not mistaken. Allow me to check. Okay, yes, in Cebu. Okay. So this was already ruled by the Supreme Court. This is quite recent ruling by the Supreme Court. This only happened in 2014. Okay. So what happened here was these graduating students were they were partying prior to their graduation, and some of them took pictures of the students just being in there only with their undergarments, and it was posted. And there are other pictures that were shown that they were in behavior that is not in line with the rules or the core values of the school. They were drinking, they were partying, they were seen exploiting vices here and there, and it was uploaded online on Facebook. But their defense was it was restricted to friends. So sabihin na nating friends lang po ito, ilan po ba yung average number of friends po natin online? For example, ako by the 1,000 po yung friends ko po on my account. So kahit i-restrict po natin to friends only, ilan na po yung nakakita. And these are all potential sharers of your information that you uploaded online. So that's why the SC ruled that, the STC or St. Teresa's College has every right to discipline you. Actually, medyo maluwag pa nga si STC, hindi lang po sila pinagmarcha for their graduation. No further sanctions were imposed on them. But then they were challenged by the parents. The STC was challenged by the parents because they retrieved personal information daw po online. Yun na nga po it was available online. Nahanap po agad ni teacher online. So, maybe the moral of this one is, what should be private stays private. Maybe there are things that you want to do on your own. There are idiosyncrasies or there are peculiarities in your life that you want to do. Don't post it anymore. Be private in some of your aspects in life. That's why there is the social in social media. Sabi nga po ng Supreme Court dun sa ruling nila, the only time that you can ensure privacy is when you set your postings to only me. Ikaw lang. Para kay pa nilagay mo online, ikaw lang naman makakita ng posting mo. That's not social media anymore. Or, if there is a reasonable restriction that was placed on your post that says, and it was completely violated by someone, then that would be the only time to consider that your privacy aspects were violated. But then, if you share it, at least to your friends, consequently, you share it to the world. And that is a reminder, a stark reminder by the Supreme Court. There's no such thing as absolute privacy in social. Because, here's another one po, we are already living in the age of the resibo era. Lahat po ng ginagawa natin online, may resibo na po. Ayan na po, the term is, pasikatin natin yan, either in good way or bad way. So, we are to be wary, we are to be careful of our actions because there are sources of information that can spring up from anywhere. So, I placed here, it says here, keep your personal life private. Okay? So, of course, no one is stopping you from posting your personal successes, your personal activities, but then maybe you have to weigh it out. What should remain private and what should remain, or what can you share to the world? And that's why nga po, celebrities, they cannot invoke privacy. They cannot invoke complete privacy because there are celebrities. Their life is observed. Their life is followed by their fans, their fanatics. And to invoke such thing is somewhat ridiculous. But of course, if they are not functioning as celebrities, then they may invoke their privacy clause. Okay? So we balance it out. So as students, as teachers, as parents, let's filter out. Ano po ba yung kailangan lang na, kayo na lang nakakaalam sa mga bagay na nangyayari po sa buhay natin. Kasi, yun nga po, like I said, lahat po yan may resibo na online. So, even in our legal system, it says na the kind of actions that are punishable are the overt ones, the ones that are seen, the ones that are experienced, in contrast to the covert ones, na kahit isipin na ito yung gagawin ko, ito yung gagawin, pag di mo ginawa, it's not punishable, it's not a crime. So, let's remember, but if we post it online, it's already in social media, it's already an overt action. Nakikita na kasi. And that is why we have to be careful when we use social media. Another concern po, sexting. I don't know if you heard this term already. Sexting is a combination of sex and texting po. It is operationally defined as an exchange of sexual messages, audio or video, either consensual or this is you force someone to give you sexual images or sexual videos, or you engage in sexually suggestive conversations. So we have to be wary as parents, as teachers, that our children will not resort to such behaviors or such activities, because this is one of the root causes of this. This is a very hot topic right now. Besides the pandemic, there's been debate online. There are discussions online about this topic, and it really starts with, if you see here, it really starts with minor aggressions. The way people talk within themselves. If we do not regulate it, if we do not guide the students or our children, yeah, they may go up the pyramid, and we do not want that for them. And we need to eradicate this kind of culture in our society. That yes, this is my statement always. Yes, decency and propriety have a place in our society, but it doesn't excuse anyone from being decent also. It is not an excuse for you to commit a crime just because they are indecent, just because they are not modest, just because the way they carry themselves or the way they dress is somewhat left to be desired by society. It doesn't give anyone a reason to commit such heinous crimes. Yes, rape may be deeply rooted. This is psychological. This may be social. This is cultural, and we have to attack it at the root cause of it para mamatay po talaga itong klaseng kultura na to. So within our own, I hope that we change our perspective that ang mali ay mali, walang dahilan, walang sisihan na, kasi bakit ganyan ka, bakit gabi ka umuwi, bakit ganito ka manamit, bakit nakikisama ka sa mga ganyang klaseng barkada, ba't ka ginagabi sa barkada mo. If people know how to conduct themselves properly, especially online, this won't be a debate anymore. This is something that has a one straight answer, that respect should be prominent in all of us. Relevant statutes for this one are A 7610. This is Anti-Child Abuse Act, Republic Act 9995, or the Anti-Photo and Video Voyeurism Act of 2009. Okay, if you remember the case of Hayden and I forgot the name of the female, so this was invoked, and this is something that we do not want our students to do also. Even po in partners, those who are also romantically partnered, even husbands and wives, we highly discourage that we share intimate images or intimate videos, because it doesn't mean that you don't trust your partner, you don't trust your husband or wife, but in cases that they cannot fully ensure the privacy or the security of those images or those videos, kunyari nawala, nanakaw, was hacked, it's game over. Kakalat na po ito. And it is very difficult to eradicate such content online. As far as I've heard, takes years. Maybe the next speaker would be able to expound more on that. I believe it really takes years for it to be eradicated, if it would be eradicated online. So the Data Privacy Act of 2012, so yun po, we have to be careful of what we collect, what we ask of the students or the learners, or even the learners, or what you give out. Because there are personal information, there are sensitive information that needs to be private, and it needs to have your consent or your parents. Since you are minors, technically you cannot give consent yet. Or for college students, if you are emancipated already or treated as adults already, consent is necessary for them to release your data, to collect your data, and so on and so forth. That's why maybe putting it into practical perspective, the ones who are sharing your grades online, your official documents online, maybe you need to think twice about sharing those, especially for the parent. I know you are proud of your children, top 1, top 2, but we have to be careful of what we share online, especially those sensitive information. Si parent po talaga yun kasi like I said, students, especially the younger ones, cannot give consent out yet. Pag pinost mo yan, ikaw po ang mananagot po kung ano man po yung mangyari dun sa data na nilabas nyo po online, because you are the supervising figure at home as parents po. And as teachers, practically speaking, ang nilalabas lang po natin na data ay yung para sa particular student lang po. We do not share the data that we have of other students. And we do not share it to third parties that are not involved in the educational process po. Kung ano lang po yung para dun sa bata or para dun sa magulang, yun lang po yung ibibigay natin. We have to preserve the privacy of individuals. And of course, this one, the Cybercrime Prevention Act of 2012, particularly cyber sex, child pornography. Hopefully, we do not experience this in schools. Awa ng Diyos po talaga, God willing, that we do not experience such. Okay? That is why they give more weight on cyber crimes. If I'm not mistaken, the penalty is a level higher compared to a crime that is done physically if it has a cyber counterpart. Because, crimes that are done online or misbehaviors that are done online, it's much easier. There's the convenience, there's the anonymity, pwede kang magtago in an alias, and at the same time, it can be proliferated faster. The distribution is exponentially quicker. You can expedite the distribution of it. Mabilis po talaga. So, that's why mas mabigat po ang binibigay nilang parusa if it's done cybernetically. And a recent one, championed by Senator Hontiveros, the Safe Spaces Act of 2018. This one expounded on the anti-sexual harassment law. So, yun po. Addressing the culture that I discussed a while ago. So here we have cyberbullying, okay? This is a perennial topic po talaga, cyberbullying. Allow me to play this video po.
When we're mean, we might say or do things that hurt others. We might be feeling angry, upset, or jealous. It could happen once, or maybe even twice. Being mean is not okay, but bullying is much worse. Bullying is when someone uses their power repeatedly to hurt or upset someone. It could be hurting or calling them names and saying hurtful things. So then, what's cyberbullying? Cyberbullying's like bullying, but it happens on the internet or on a device like your phone, which can make it kind of different. With cyberbullying, it can feel harder to escape because it can happen anywhere, anytime. Also, it's easier for cyberbullies to hide who they are. Plus, other people online can see what's happening and even gang up on someone. If you see someone being bullied, in person or online, what can you do? Give them support. It helps to show that you care. Be an upstander. Stand up for others and say something to the bully. Report what you see and tell a trusted adult. So, what will you do if you see cyberbullying?
All right, so that was from commonsense.org. Okay, so it briefly and concisely discusses cyberbullying po. It's bullying transferred online po. And like I said a while ago po, it is much convenient kasi nga po, you can hide, you can be anonymous. So there's already an act for it, a Republic Act 10627 or the Anti-Bullying Act of 2013, which required schools to have a child protection policy. Naging mainit din po itong topic na bakit si child may protection? Teachers ba walang protection? Meron po. As long as we are functioning in a way that would not impede the child's holistic well-being po. That we are not abusing their minority. If we do our disciplinary authority or we act on our disciplinary authority with due diligence, with proper diligence, then that is our protection that we have done. We have exhausted our efforts to discipline the child properly. Kaya po may child protection kasi po, just like women, children are considered one of the vulnerable sectors in our society. Kaya there are a lot of champion laws, there are a lot of champion statutes that are meant for women and are meant for children. Bakit wala daw po sa men? Explain po nung professor ko, kasi walang naglalobby for men. Kaya wala for men. And, these laws, these statutes, they are derived from data. Sino po ba ang naabuso? Sino ang who are subjected to abuses, to violations? It's mostly women and children. That's why there are substantive laws that are meant to protect women and especially children. That's why we have the child protection policy in schools. So this is a definition, extensive definition derived from the law itself, okay, of bullying. So there you go. It can be physical, social, verbal, and cyber, okay? So what are the tips to battle cyberbullying? Let's watch this.
Cyberbullying, whether it's done online or over a cell phone, can take families by surprise. But if your kids are texting, sharing photos, and posting comments, it's important to have a conversation with them about what to do if they become a target of online harassment. Here are 5 tips to share with your kids about dealing with cyberbullies. First, don't respond or retaliate. If you're angry or hurt, you might say things you regret later. Plus, retaliation only prolongs the problem and doesn't solve it. Second, block the bully. Block phone numbers, screen names, and email addresses, and remove the person from your buddy or friends list. Third, save the evidence. Print out or take screenshots of abusive messages and keep them as proof. Fourth, report it. Most websites have rules against cyberbullying. You can usually find information on how to report abuse in the site's community guidelines. And finally, tell a trusted adult. Telling a teacher or a parent isn't tattling. It's standing up for yourself. And even if the bullying occurs online, your school probably has rules against it. For more cyberbullying prevention tips and advice, visit us at commonsense.org.
All right. Tips. Save the evidence. Don't retaliate. Kasi That's what the bully wants, for you to retaliate, magalit ka. That's his or her goal, to aggravate you. So do not be better. Be better than that particular person or that particular bully. You save the evidence, you report it. Report it where? On the platform that where it happened. Facebook, Twitter, they have mechanisms for reporting. If you remember, yun nga po, ang daming reports of duplicate accounts before. So just like that, report what is happening. Report what happened, block a particular account or whoever he or she is, and you tell your parents or the school in particular that this has been happening. Yun nga lang po, the limitations are if we really cannot trace it where it came from, then at least there are some measures and the school would be able to give you proper guidance and intervention psychologically that we can be able to assist you to battle out such bullying activities. But if you, at the most that we can, we will address and we will find out who did it and give proper interventions for it. So, of course, I do not want to somewhat end this presentation with the don'ts. If Prof. Kaluwing is here, I remember in her class, the OIC of the College of Education, she mentioned that most of our rules nowadays are prescriptive. Bawal to, bawal tumawid dito, nakamamatay, bawal tumawid dyan, may namatay na, kulang na lang, bawal tumawid dyan, may ililibing na po dito. So, it's prescriptive rather than prescriptive. What do we want from our children? What do we want from our students? And this is what we want. I derived, if you would read the first letters downward, I derive it from the usual term of law students, recitation. And of course, what we want from our students is that they have respect even online. They can empathize. This is a level higher than sympathy. And this is the opposite of apathy. We empathize. We understand what they are going through. Especially, we will understand if we already have gone through those situations. Kung naranasan na po natin yung mga nararanasan po nila ngayon, we empathize. Or even if you haven't experienced it, it's vicarious. We learn how to care for them, matutong dumamay sa kalungkutan ng ibang tao, even online. And even courtesy po, because I believe the way we interact, the way we behave, it's not just because how the person acts on you, but because we behave because this is who we are as persons. This is who we are as individuals. Ikaw po ba? Paano ka po ba? How do you want to be defined as a person? So yun po yung tanong na gusto ko pong iwan sa inyo. Inclusivity, let's not be discriminating of one another. Oo naman po yung saan po siya ng pinanggagalingan, ang kanyang orientation, ang kanyang expression, kanyang gender. Oo naman po yan. We learn how to respect them because they are persons. And whatever their decision in life is, we respect it also. Especially as parents po. Nakikita po natin na they are likened to, or they have a liking to a different aspect of entertainment. Let's support them kasi doon po sila natutuwa doon po sila masaya. And let's not give them past judgment on them. Let's not be dismissive to them saying na hindi, lalaki ka dapat ganito, babae ka dapat ganon. That's why personally po at home, whenever my children play, they play with the same toys. we explore. Baka doon natin may discover yung magiging gusto nila paglaki po nila eh. So if we restrict them na blue for boys, pink for girls, hindi ba pwedeng lahat ng colors po ay pwede po sa ating lahat? Pwede naman po talaga. The pink can be for the boys, the blue can be for the girls, and all of the spectrum, or the spectra, the color is allowable for all of us. So let's be inclusive po, even online. And let us allow our arguments to be issue-based and not based on the personality of the individual. And lastly po, tactfulness. The way we say it, the way we deliver it is important. So just different tips, responsible citizenship, and think before you post. So the principle that I want to share with you is restriction and provision. We restrict, but then we provide at the same time. So Attorney Estrada would say, if you don't make students accountable for their bad behavior, they will never value their education. So going back po to the mango tree, we're almost done po. The mango tree in our home is, of course, we establish house rules, we establish policies in school, and we resemble justice, true justice po. But then our bamboo grass is positive discipline, understanding, patience, and compassion. I'd like to leave you with this verse. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained.